Let's take a look at the very first part of that formula, the visualization part. Now you might be asking yourself, what's visualization? Visualization is very, very simple. If you look at the screen right now, and then you close your eyes and you imagine the screen, that's visualization. We do it all the time, and lots of times we don't even think about it. So if I say, where's your car parked right now? Immediately your mind flashes a picture of your car because we think in symbols. We manipulate symbols in our minds. That's another form of visualization. All we're going to be doing when we talk about the formula that involves visualization is manipulating symbols like that. It's just an intentional imagining of something specific. Well, there's a couple of very common points that you hear out there in the literature on visualization. This is in the public literature, not so much the academic literature. But I really want to address them right away because if you've never heard anything about visualization, that's fine, but most people will have at least read maybe one or two things about it, and chances are these points will have been made. So let's tackle them first. The first is to see your visualizations as occurring in the present. Now this is different than the idea of visualizing yourself maybe playing tennis, mentally rehearsing playing tennis and seeing yourself doing it in real time. What they usually mean here is to visualize your end goal as having already happened. So in this case, if we want, for instance, to get rid of some debt, what they would say is formulate your visualizations so that you're seeing yourself as already free of debt rather than paying off debt. And the reason that they often say to do that is because you don't want to push it off into the future. If you just think about the difference between these two statements. In one, you're seeing yourself as not having the debt. In the other one, you're seeing yourself as having the debt, but dealing with the debt and paying it off. So that's a very common recommendation, to see yourself as debt-free, for instance, instead of paying off the debt. Now, as we'll see, the academic literature has things to say about this, and we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of our session. The second thing that you commonly hear is to make your visualizations positive. There's a very common thought about the subconscious or the unconscious mind out there in the publicly available literature. Now, I have to tell you that science really has a raging debate about whether or not there even is a subconscious or unconscious portion of your mind. Right? So when you see the subconscious and the unconscious presented in public books, you have to sort of keep in mind that that's by no means a completely solid and sort of proven concept. Nonetheless, what they say about the subconscious mind is that it doesn't understand negatives. So if you say we don't have debt, it's the equivalent of saying to your subconscious mind, we have debt. So they say make your visualizations positive because what you're trying to really do is sort of impress upon your subconscious mind. And if you impress upon it with a negative, it won't hear that negative, and you may very well wind up with the opposite of what you originally intended. Let's talk about some other ways of viewing visualization. Now, we've talked a lot about the sports psychology and the mental rehearsal stuff, and I always want you to remember the biological caveat there. They're dealing with their own bodies. They're not trying to manifest parking spots. They're not trying to manifest houses. They're not trying to manifest someone else's love. They're trying to manifest improvements in their own sports performance, right? So we always have to sort of keep things in mind involving research-driven facts, in that the research only applies to a very, very limited set of conditions, unless it's had a lot of additional work on it and what's called generalization done around it to other things. Now, the other bullet points here on this screen, on this graphic, I want you to think about two ways, and I've only written them one way here. But we're going to talk about each one of these from two different angles. And it's, again, this idea that we want to give you options to play with. You need to be constructing and playing around with what is best for you. So, the first one here, try to experience what it would be like to have your goal accomplished. That's one way of viewing visualization, is when you're doing your visualization, actually experiencing what it would be like to have your goal accomplished. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to visualize the process to that goal, not having the goal accomplished. Seeing the process and having a visualization of being successful at the end of that process. The second one, don't see yourself in a scene from the outside as you would in a picture. This is part of that sports psychology idea, right? You want to actually see yourself, and this goes to the third point, from within your body as you're doing whatever it is that you want to have come to pass. So you actually visualize yourself doing it from the inside, not seeing yourself from the outside. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is the exact opposite of that, and that is to actually visualize scenes where you do see yourself from the outside. And again, one of these may be more effective for you than another. And the effectiveness may be different across what you're trying to manifest. So if you're trying to increase your synchronicity in an area of your life, one of these might be better than another, but you have to keep in mind that it could be very context dependent. And the last point here, experience your senses just as you would if you were actually experiencing what it is that you're visualizing. So if you're visualizing yourself playing tennis, you would try to visualize as many of your senses as possible. Now again, there's an opposite to that, right? For each one of these points, you have choices to make. And what you really are doing is you want to construct the best visualization for you, and you want to have all of these different options available. There's no way for anyone to know what will be most effective for you in a given situation. All you can do is take your best guess based on all of your accumulated knowledge to that point, which hopefully will have involved experimenting a lot with this at some point, if it doesn't already. Take your best guess and combine things together, and if it works, great. If it doesn't work, reformulate it, change it up. Try different alternatives that you see here presented on this graphic, for instance.